I'm Holland Razimore from Adeline May Sleep, and I am a baby-led sleep and well-being specialist. So I did explain it last week, but I'll explain it again. Essentially, I support families using attachment-based theories and not separation-based. So I'm always making sure that mom and baby are very much connected and not using any type of sleep training. Hello for those who are just joining in now. And yes, so I do support families one-on-one and support them using a holistic approach. So a lot goes into your baby's sleep, a lot of things that you may not think of, and I just kind of help open up the lens of what you might not know, just in terms of like emotions and attachment, health, that's a big one as well. So I'll get started here in terms of questions that I received. And also for those that just joined, I was mentioning if you do have any questions, hi Kyla, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'll do my best to get to those questions as well. The Gabby's, hi. Okay, perfect. So the first question that I have here is I'm breastfeeding and nursing my almost 1-year-old daughter to sleep at night and 4 naps, okay? She's waking 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times throughout the night, and she's asking, is that out of habit? And how and when will she wake up less? Okay, so a couple things I want to talk about here. The first one is our children are waking at night because they are signaling to us. They're basically saying to us, I need you, and I'm communicating a need to you. So that's the first thing to note. And the other thing that some of you might not know is that we don't actually all sleep through the night. So we'll wake up, but we have learned how to put ourselves back to sleep, right? So eventually your child will get to that point where, hello for those who are joining, we'll get to that point where they're able to fall asleep back on their own. But they're basically, they're creatures of connection. So when will the child wake up less? It really depends on the child. Some children are able to hold on longer when apart. They're able to be okay with with more separation. I think that we just have to be patient with that. And then the other thing is that adding in sleep association. So what is a sleep association? So a sleep association is basically anything that you can use while putting your child to sleep. So I always recommend doing this from day one. So day one, if you're nursing your child to sleep, also maybe rub their back, sing them a song, sway them, whatever it is. So you can slowly take off those layers. Eventually, when, let's say you want to stop breastfeeding or nursing to sleep, you can just use the rubbing, or you can just use your voice. And that way they have more associations to sleep. So that is a big one, is adding in those sleep associations. And as they get older, you can even introduce something like a lovey, a little stuffed animal, something that smells like you, that, so when they wake, they smell you, and it'll help them just fall back asleep a little bit easier. So another question here is around spoiling your child. This is a big one. And, I shared last week that I had someone ask me or say to me, you're going to spoil your baby because I was holding her while she was sleeping on me, which is hilarious. Hi, everyone that's just joining in here. Thank you guys for joining. I'm just going through some questions that I received in terms of sleep, wellness, bit of everything. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in here, and I will do my best to address those once we get through all of these here. So the question here is, can you spoil a child by always reacting to their demands? So the first thing to note is that you cannot spoil a baby. Contrary to popular belief, they are signaling a need to us, right? So they are basically telling us when they're crying, either I'm hungry, or I have gas, or I have pain, or I'm afraid. They're crying because they need you, right? So you're not spoiling your child by reacting and by giving them love. You're just doing what you instinctively feel is the right thing to do. You're meant to hold your baby. You're meant to give them love and attention. That's the beautiful thing about, the bond between the parent and the child. One thing that I do want to note on this around, spoiling your child is that when they turn 9 months of age, and I mentioned this last week in my live, is that they start to create a sense of autonomy. So when they do something, they can kind of take responsibility for that in a sense. And basically what this means is that you can start to add in some boundaries at this time. Boundaries around things that are no longer working for you. So that really depends on you and your family. I know for myself, sometimes when I'm cooking and my daughter is at me like, pick me up, pick me up, pick me up. My daughter is 2 years old. I'll say to her, communicate, Adeline, mommy is busy right now. Mommy is cooking dinner. I'm sorry I can't pick you up, but when I'm done, I'll be happy to pick you up. So it's just setting those boundaries that you're not always at their beck and call, them calling the shots and you're just, going and doing whatever they want. You need to set boundaries and expectations around things that are either acceptable or not acceptable for your family. So that's what I would say around spoiling a child. And then I have a question here actually from Kyla who's on. And I know Kyla is a mom of 2 boys. So she is asking, when do you think siblings should share a room? So I love this question because it's interesting that in our culture, we would ask this, right? We in North America have become kind of obsessed with like separate sleep and separate sleep space. In other cultures, the family all sleep in the same bed, right? Like they all sleep in the same room, whether it's because, just economic reasons that it's a smaller space, but regardless, they all sleep in the same space. So this is something that my answer to this is that this can happen at any age. And I think what really matters here is that you speak with the children and you communicate it to them. So you say to them, the older child, this is something that I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have your younger brother come and sleep with you. What do you think about that? And maybe have them involved with setting up the room together and get them excited. The other thing to note, right, is the younger one or the older one are they disrupting each other's sleep, right? So we don't want to get in a situation where the children are waking up more because the other one is waking them. Something to try. I think communicate the change and give it a try. And I think it's actually a beautiful thing to have that close sibling bond when you're sleeping together. I think it's something that you can definitely introduce as early as now. So for those who are just joining, hi everyone. I'm just going through some questions that I received. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. So question around naps. I know naps are always a challenge for any child, right? Trying to get in those naps. That's our time, our sanity to just rest. So we don't get the nap, it's hard. So this question is how to successfully get in longer naps during the day, or if when they wake, how to extend the nap. So this mom is saying, my girl is 10 months and has gone back into waking after 20 minutes during her naps, and it has been a challenge. So been there, this happened. So the first thing I want to note is that if something has not been going on for more than 2 weeks, then I just recommend to wait it out, and you don't necessarily have to do anything. If it's something that's uncommon, it might just be something developmentally happening. And then if you wait it out, it'll usually just correct itself. Also, this mom mentioned that the child is 10 months. They could be going through the 8 to 10 month sleep progression. So lots of development happening. This could be part of it. The other thing I would recommend is that if you're okay try to introduce some motion naps. Motion actually really helps, not just babies, but even us. If you ever laid in a hammock, rocking back and forth, like you fall asleep within an instant or when you're in the car, the motion helps you sleep. So this is the true with our children, right? Maybe try some motion naps during this period of time if that nap is not happening and it's something that, you really are keen on having. Try that. Maybe not stroller, maybe baby wearing. And then if you're breastfeeding, maybe you could go in with a wake at 20 minutes. Go in, lay beside them, maybe nurse them back to sleep. Or lay with them for the entire nap and see if just having you and smelling you will help them sleep longer. Now, there is another method that I've actually never personally used, but I know of others that have used it. And it's something you can try, and it's called the wake to sleep method. So what you would do, so in this instance, the child is waking up after 20 minutes. Go in at 15 minutes and just like lightly rouse them, just like blow or like touch their back. And what you're wanting to do is kick into the next sleep cycle. So they'll rise a little bit, but not enough to wake up. And then hopefully that will then get them into the next sleep cycle. You could also have a child that wakes up in 50 minutes from a nap as opposed to 20 minutes. So that's something you can try. It depends on the child, really. Hello, everyone who's just joining. Just going through some questions here that I received. Thank you all for being here. Okay, so question I have here is, when will my child have a predictable schedule? We'll wake the same time for 3 days and then changes the next week, or naps will be different lengths. I'm in this boat as well. So today my daughter decided to have a 40-minute nap. A couple days ago, she slept for an hour and a half. Sometimes she sleeps for 2 hours. So sleep is not linear, and I always say that same phrase because you can apply it in so many different ways. And essentially what that means is that they are going to always change because of development, right? Like there's sleep progressions, there's teething, there's separation anxiety. There's so much going on that this affects sleep, right? So that's what I would say. In terms of like predictable schedule, it really depends on the child, and you might have periods of time when it is a predictable schedule and then it can change again. So I know that we get given all this information from the sleep books, from sleep trainers about like your child will sleep from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then they will have 3 2-hour naps from this time to this time. And you're like looking at the schedule thinking, well, my child's not doing that. Like the book says I'm supposed to do that, but my child's not doing that. Like, what's wrong with my child? Nothing is wrong with your child. There's something wrong with that schedule, and every baby's different. So don't get caught up on looking at like sleep schedules. And if your friend's baby sleeps like for 2-hour naps and your child isn't, and it's at different times, that's totally normal, okay? A question here is about is how to transition out of sleep feeding and milk to fall asleep when co-sleeping. So I definitely get a lot of questions about how to transition out of nursing to sleep because this is such a natural and easy thing for us to do, right? I do it with my daughter. But of course, there comes a time when maybe this is no longer working for you and you're looking for ways to change this. So I made some notes here and I even said like, this is a difficult one, When I started at the beginning, I said, add in as many sleep associations as possible, right? So adding in rubbing the back, adding in singing, adding in any other kind of soothing methods that you have so that eventually when you stop nursing, you'll still have these other associations that the child then can use as their method to fall asleep. So that's what I would recommend is just add in sleep association. So even while you're nursing during the day, do that, rub the back, sing, and then at night do the same thing. And then the child will eventually start to recognize a certain rhythm and a certain association with sleep. So a great question here, which I love, and this is applicable for our children and even for us, is What are the key factors for baby being able to sleep well? So I always say, like, put yourself in your child's shoes, right? What are the factors that would help you have a good sleep? So the sleep environment is really a key factor to ensuring that your child will stay asleep and fall asleep in a much easier way. So light, right? When we have a dark room, this helps because when there's artificial light, that actually interferes with your melatonin level. And your melatonin level is a sleep hormone, and that's what helps you fall asleep. So low lighting and noise, right? Some babies are okay with noise. Other babies are extremely highly sensitive. And if they hear like a creaky floor or a dog barking or anything, like they will wake up. So a white noise machine or a fan or even like a humidifier that makes noise, that can drown out any of the outside noise. So play around with it. Again, these are ideas and it might not work for your child. So you just have to do kind of like a trial and error and see what works. And one thing to note is that babies are mostly in a light state of sleep. So that's why they wake also more often than adults, and why something like noise can also wake them up. Temperature. So the ideal temperature actually for a child's room is between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius, which might sound like a little bit on the cooler side, but children actually sleep better in a cooler environment. And also ensuring that their pajamas are like a very breathable fabric, like a cotton. I know some families will in the winter put on like flannel pajamas, and this is not breathable. The child can get a little bit overheated at night, and this can cause them to wake up. So those would be the main things that I would recommend for, factors in order for your child to sleep better. Okay, I love this question. So how can we tell if baby is ready to sleep longer hours? So I'm here to tell you that you have no control over how long your child sleeps, right? Sleeping is a biological function, just like eating and eliminating. We have to remind ourselves that our child knows their body best, right? And they will sleep as long as they need to. Of course, there are things that we can do to help support this by making sure they're not overtired, by making sure they're not overstimulated, the right sleep environment, etc. But in terms of, when they're ready to sleep longer, that's not something that's kind of in our control. If anything, the amount of sleep that they normally have when they start out in this world is a lot more, and it continues to reduce as they get older, okay? So I have a question here from a parent, and it says, should we be concerned about feeding their daughter at night if she is still sleeping? So I'm not entirely sure the age of this child, but let's say this is a newborn child. When you have a newborn, you are usually waking them, if you're breastfeeding, every 3 to 4 hours in order to make sure you're getting the recommended amount of breastfeeds in 24 hours. So yes, in that instance, when you have a newborn, definitely you have to be waking them to feed them. And then there's also something that I use sometimes with my clients that is called the dream feed method. And so essentially what this is that you would go in, let's say about 30 minutes prior to when your child would typically wake at night, and you would do kind of a dream feed. And the goal here is that then the child will not wake from hunger to eat, that they would continue to sleep through. Again, this depends on the child, this depends on the situation, but there have been families that this work for them, and the child is essentially sleeping. It's called dream feed, but it is something that I have definitely done with clients. Okay, so I've got a question here from Sammy, who I think is on here. So Samantha asks, what are some tips navigating the transition from baby to toddler? It's been a total shift. And I agree, because I am in like full-blown toddler world right now with my daughter, and it's like totally fantastic, but it's also like such a shift, right? Such a mind shift on how we parent, right? So I have quite a few things I wrote on this. I could talk about this for hours and hours, but I know there's only a limited amount of time. So what I'll say is that yes, you are in a whole new world. Toddlerhood is a big change. And what's happening here is actually your child is starting to develop their sense of self, right? Before the age of 12 months, your child is basically believes that they're an extension of you, right? They don't see themselves as a separate person. Once they reach the age of 12 months, they start to kind of shift that, and they start to understand, like, I'm my own person. I have my own opinion. I have, my own ideas about what I like and what I don't like. So when they enter into toddlerhood, they actually start to develop something called counter will. And this is a term that has been Dr. Neufeld uses. And Dr. Neufeld basically goes through what counter will is. And basically the child is saying, you're not the boss of me, right? That's what's happening. So how do we deal with this? So it's really important to have a very strong attachment with your child. And what do I mean by this? A strong and secure attachment, it's not just, always catering to your child for whatever they need. It's also being that person that will anticipate the child's needs, right? So knowing when they need to eat before they're hungry, knowing when they need to sleep before they're overtired. It's being in what Dr. Neufeld calls the alpha role. So you as a parent, yes, you are in a leader position, not in this like power struggle, but you're in the leader position, and you essentially need to have your child be able to rest knowing that their needs will be met. And when a child is always in that position of always needing to signal to their parent, I need this, I need that, I need that, it puts them into an alpha position, and there's a bit of a shift here that happens. And that is not the right attachment relationship. When this starts to happen, you'll notice that your child is resisting a lot, and they're the ones that are in that, kind of power and control position. So yes, this is a topic that is very in depth, but what I would say is just anticipate as much as you can your child's needs, and inject play in things, right? Because, for example, like brushing teeth. I know with my daughter, brushing teeth, it's like she's running across the hallway like, nope, you're not brushing my teeth, you're not touching my teeth. But as soon as I'm like, okay, let's get those alligators out, let's go get those little chicken out, like, inject some fun. And then she's like, okay, this is a game. As much as you can inject some fun into, your daily tasks of doing things, your children will respond so much better, and it just makes it more fun for you. So toddlerhood, again, setting boundaries. This is really important. Of course, as parents, we want our children to be happy all the time. But it's important that they understand that there are limits in life, that there are things that are not okay. And yes, you're going to start to notice that they have an opinion. No, I don't want this. No, I don't want that. Maybe you had a certain bedtime routine that was working really well in the past, and all of a sudden the child's like, no, I don't like that book. No, I don't want those pajamas. They're basically, they're trying to figure out what they like. And so I would just acknowledge this and understand why it's happening. I mean, with my daughter, her favorite thing right now is turning the light on and off game. So we have a light switch that's like right by our bed, lucky me. And it's like, I turn the light off, Adeline goes and turns the light on. And then it's a bit of a game. And of course there has to be a point where I'm like, Adeline, no, like this is done, it's bedtime. And you might have some tears, but this is normal. Your toddler is going to challenge you. So last thing I'll just mention about the toddler is that give your toddler some tasks around the house that they can feel proud of. Like, children love to help. And the more that you involve them in your daily routine, the more that they're going to feel like, they are able to do things, and, their sense of worth, their sense of confidence goes up. So, for example, I have a Montessori tower, which I love. My daughter will help out with making dinner. She loves that. Or she'll help out with doing the laundry, or, we'll sweep the floor. And just having them involved in those things will help them feel like they have a little control, like they're contributing to the household. A lot of things that we do for our children, we do for them. And so they feel like they have no control over anything. The more that we can give them tasks for them to feel proud of, the more that they're going to feel like they have a little bit of control in their life. So good luck, Sammy. It's a fun age. So I think someone asked here, wake to sleep, do you think it works? I personally have never tried this method, and my clients have never used it, but I do know other sleep and well-being specialists who have used this, and it has worked, but it's not a really high percentage of people that it works for. Again, you can totally try it once, maybe a couple times, see how it goes. And Roy, I see your question there. I will do my best to get to that one. I just have a couple more to go through here, okay? Thanks for the questions, guys. Okay, question here. At what age should I try for naps in the crib? Only stroller naps for now, or should I just give up? So I love this question because it's a real struggle. Like, having our children sleep in a crib should seem like the easiest thing to do. You know, you see it in the commercials, you see like, you know, this is just, they sleep in a crib. They're supposed to sleep in the crib. It's not that easy, especially when we have newborns, you know, who are in the first couple months in that fourth trimester. They are sleeping on mama, and that's usually the only place they're going to nap. You do sometimes have this like unicorn child that loves to sleep in their crib, but it doesn't happen as often as you would think. Now, I'm not saying to give up. I'm just saying it's normal that they prefer to have motion. They prefer to be in the stroller, but you can try at any time. One thing I would say about this is make sure that your child loves their sleep space. When they are playing in their crib, they're releasing those endorphins, they're enjoying it, it will be a space that they are more accepting to go back into to sleep. Okay? So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that one. Okay, question here. This is a bit of a long one, but it's a good one. So bear with me here. So this mom says, my daughter is almost a year old, and for the last few weeks, she has been fighting her second nap. Okay, it doesn't happen most days. The nap doesn't happen most days, and she is up from noon, so after her first nap, until about 6:37. Which is a long wake window. So she is so tired, but she just won't go down. She would rather play, so I give her milk. We sing, we rock, I lay her down, she cries, and then she plays, cries, babbles, you know, that fun game at night bedtime. And then I give up after an hour, and I just bring her back downstairs and wait until after dinner. So what the mom also says is that she's having huge developmental leaps. She's learning to stand up. She's learning to walk with assistance, babbling like crazy. Sometimes she babbles in her sleep. She's a busy girl. And so the mom's just wondering, how do I support the second nap? And when is it appropriate to drop the second nap? Am I doing something wrong? So this totally sounds like the 12-month sleep progression, right? This child is developing and working on so many skills, right? Babbling in your sleep, learning how to walk. There's lots going on developmentally in the brain. And so this is going to disrupt sleep, right? Sometimes it disrupts sleeps overnight. Sometimes it's a nap. Sometimes it's both, right? Right now, what it sounds to me like is that what you could try to do, you could wait it out, or you could try to actually have the morning nap a little bit earlier and try to cap it so it wouldn't be as long. And then that way, hopefully they're a little bit more tired for the second nap. Also, you can try and have the second nap using motion. So try and go in the stroller, see if that will be able to support the nap, or just lay beside the child. Nursing, if you do, if you're nursing, and that can help when you're laying beside the child. But in terms of dropping that second nap, I mean, usually children don't drop the second nap until usually around 14 to 18 months. So I don't think you're at that stage yet. I would just kind of wait it out, see how this progression goes. The sleep progression can last up to, I think it was like 2 to 4 or 6 weeks. So it can last. My daughter's 18-month sleep progression lasted like 6 weeks. It was crazy. So yeah, just wait it out and see what happens. But try some of those things I recommended and see how it goes. Let me know. Okay. Question here from Reem. So, what kinds of things can I do to tire out my toddler before bed? Love this question because this is a real struggle. Sometimes you'll have a toddler that is literally jumping off of beds when it's bedtime, and what they're telling you is, I need more activity. I need to move my body. I haven't moved my body enough today. So I always recommend to inject as much activity as you can into the day. I'm not saying 24/7 activity. Our children need to rest. We need to, have a good sense of order in terms of activity and resting, but get outside, like fresh air. The nature is calming. It helps you sleep. And also when you're inside, sometimes, there's screens and there's maybe too much stimulation. It can be harder to fall asleep with that. But really some rough and tumble play. Sometimes parents, it's usually a thing that dads like to do. I know my husband loves to do that rough and tumble play with my daughter. And so that, is great for them. It really helps them to release that energy and get their body moving so that they can then to fall asleep. So try some rough and tumble play. And again, it depends on your child. Every child's different. Some might love this rough and tumble play before bed. Others might be like, whoa, this is too much for me. I need my Zen music and candles and my massage, Tune into your child and see what works for them. That is all the questions that I got in advance. I actually powered through those a lot quicker than I thought I would. But I know that Roy actually had a question here, so let me just read through this. So Roy is asking, what are the long-term developmental differences in kids who were sleep trained versus nurtured as babies? Okay, so this is a big question, and I'm going to tread lightly on this one because I definitely don't want to offend any parents who have sleep trained their child. I know many people who have done it, and it's a choice that each parent makes. Some parents make the choice knowing a lot of information, and some people do it just because they were told to do it and it seemed like the right thing at the time. So I'm not here to shame anyone who sleep trains. I'm just personally not an advocate for it. And the reason I'm not an advocate for it is because sleep training, essentially, your child is still waking at night, even if they're sleep trained, they're just not signaling to you. So when a child is not signaling to you, that means that they're not letting you know that they have needs. And so what I see this as progressing into the future is that this is a child that is not going to openly express when they need something, when something is not right. They're going to internalize that. That's an issue. And I think that the sleep training culture, if you Google, is sleep training harmful to a child, most of the things you're going to read say that it's actually okay. And that, doctors recommend it. Doctors will actually say to you how your child's not sleeping through the night, you got to sleep train them. So there's this big misconception out there about how safe sleep training is and that it is recommended. At the end of the day, if sleep training is right for you, go for it. But anybody you talk to who has done sleep training say it was so hard, and every fiber in their body was telling them, go in the room, pick up the child, they're crying. But they were told, no, you got to keep the door closed, you got to let your child cry it out. What are they crying out? They're crying out a need. They're crying out their need for comfort. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they're gassy, maybe they're scared. Our children are creatures of attachment, and they need you. They need that love. They need that security. So what are they crying out? They're crying out for you. Developmentally, in the long run, yeah, I think there's definitely an effect that will happen to you through that happening. I'm not saying it's not reversible. It's not something that, you can get help with. But I think that whenever we're not, answering to our child's needs through love and compassion, it is hard for them. It's something that it sticks in you, in your subconscious of that I'm not important. My needs are not important, right? I think that's what's the big issue there. Our children are so vulnerable, and they rely on us to be the people to be their advocate, to nurture and to comfort them when they need it. So that's why I don't use sleep training. And I can tell you that I also was advised, by friends and family that, when are you going to sleep train? This is around the time you should do it, like 4 to 5 months. And just something inside of me, like it just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel like this was the right thing to do. Even though everybody was telling me I should, I then discovered Isla Grace. Isla Grace, for those of you who don't know, her name is Lauren. She owns Isla Grace, the company, and she's actually the one who created the baby-led sleep approach. And I took her certification course to become a baby-led sleep and well-being specialist. So I found her and I found her methods, and it's really about tuning into your instincts. If something tells you this is wrong, it's probably wrong. This is applicable in all areas of life. So I'm happy that I found this methodology. And I know that so many, those watching and those who follow me on Instagram, you also have this feeling inside that something is not right with the sleep training culture and you're looking for a different way. So this is what I provide. I provide a different way of parenting, your child to sleep, and just really educating people on what is normal infant sleep. Like, it's normal for babies to wake. It is normal for your child to want to be with you 24/7. It might not be convenient. It might not be what you thought motherhood would be, but it certainly is normal and the reality. Yeah.